It's so nice that I get to come to your bookstore in this way. So thank you for just wanting to be part of this particular book at this particular tour, and using this adaptive way to bring me and your audience together, and anybody else who's tuned in from wherever you are. Um, it's really wonderful to be here. So I am coming to you from Brooklyn, New York, and this is my studio where I work. I have a little setup so that I can beam in to and out to where everybody is. These are some of the characters that appear in the book. Many of them are people that I know, who I asked, would you be the teacher in this story? Would you be the counselor in this story? Would you be the main character's good friend? And people allowed me to use their names and their images, and they consulted on what people should wear and what the room should look like where they are. And it was just a really beautiful collaborative effort. And in a way, I gathered my own people to help to bring this book to life and to give it all the care that I wanted to have and that I wanted the book to have, so that it could speak to an experience that children are having, who, just getting to know who they are and having their own identity just emerge. And this story is about Demetrius, this child here, who is raised by two parents who don't live together. They're not together, but they parent Demetrius together. And Demetrius feels that love. His father is Black, his mother is white. There are, in a way, two different worlds that he's moving in because of that. And yet we get to see the functional way that the people around him really make space for him to be who he is. And even at school, which can be really scary and really threatening, because Demetrius has had the experience of being targeted for various things, for his racial identity and for his sexual identity, or for whatever, even without him naming it, whatever people are perceiving that put that target on him. And if you've ever had this experience, you know exactly what I mean. So even at school, he observes that there are people watching out for him, and he appreciates them. And some of those characters are here. The radical librarian, she's got tattoos all up her arms, and his counselor, and and most importantly, his best friend Moxie. And I imagine Moxie, this is middle school, and I imagine Moxie being an 8th grader when he is a 6th grader, and really just like, she saw him coming in at 6th grade and was like, I'm gonna watch out for you. And then his teacher, Ms. O, she's actually a teacher in Detroit, who I met on another book tour. So I am going to read you the story from a little bit further along. So I told you about the school. I would like to just jump into the story and tell you about what's emerging for the child. This is, Stephanie mentioned the other books that I've made. In all of those books, there is a narrator who's basically me. And this is the first book where I wanted the main character to narrate their own story and to have that authority. And so I'm going to begin reading so that they can tell you what you don't know and what they want you to know. Okay, thanks. Okay. What you don't know is there are lots of people I have to hide myself from, but my dad is not one of them. He has always seen me true. He gives me space to be who I am. I do the same for him. The air is easy between us. There's enough. He teaches me what his dad taught him. And you see, I used black and white here to show this is his dad's childhood. So this is his grandfather telling his dad when his dad was a little kid. Don't let anybody out there tell you who you are. And then this is now where the dad says to his son, all you need to be is you. My father loves me completely, and you bet I feel it. Now the dad's bringing Demetrius back to his mom because they share this, the delight of having him in their home, basically. See you Sunday, the child says as they say goodbye to their dad, and mom receives the child. Now there they are at mom's house, snuggled up on the couch. My mother fights for us, he says. And now we see the mom in her childhood, and I use the black and white again. She was a sensitive kid too. And we hear the mom curse, but I won't curse. I'll just bleep it out for you. We see a little kid, mom as a little kid, awake when she should be asleep, living out in the suburbs somewhere. The world is so bleeping unfair, she says, as she clutches her blanket. I slept with a blanket for a really, really long time. Sorry. Oops. Sorry. Hold on. The little windows of us are getting in the way of the words. She's got her own ideas, her own sense of justice, and her own ideas about God. And we see mom, she's reading her phone and she's cussing at her phone. These bleeping blankety blanks brag about endangering the lives of trans kids. They don't know bleep about Jesus's grace. And you see those little hearts coming off of the kid? It may sound strange, but when she's cussing at her phone, I feel loved and seen. The news is atrocious, says mom. Hide my phone from me. This is apparently something that they have a routine with because he knows just what to do. She lets me know that I matter and that I'm not the one with the problem. And we see her holding a book there by an author named Octavia E. Butler. And the book is called Parable of the Sower. What you don't know, this child is thinking, sitting on the couch with his mom, what you don't know is that even though I'm loved at home, the world's ugliness toward gay people lands right on me. They make laws against us, call us evil, try to convert us. And what about the ones who aren't loved at home? What about the kids whose own families reject them? And so what I wanted to show here was that alignment, and that I can be safe at home when I'm in my home, but I can also feel really connected to and feel the vibrations of everyone who may not be. And that is part of what I carry. That's what the child is telling us. And we see the mom reading her book and reading these words, God is change, shape God. And now at church, the mom has brought her child to church. And this is what he's thinking. Churches can preach all they want about love. The only thing that I feel when I'm here is shame. But the shame isn't mine, and it's not coming from God. I have nothing to be ashamed of. My spirit floats free. And then we see his little spirit float free. And it floats up and loop-de-loops. And look who shows up in the ceiling of the church. And he floats in from the side, looking like just who this kid knows he is. Jesus. Yes, he says. You're here, always and everywhere. Do you know what's happening down there? Yes, says Jesus. Does it hurt your feelings if I don't believe in you? It's my job to believe in you, says Jesus, and I do. So we're cool? Always, says Jesus. Hey, Jesus. Hey, what? Are there other gods besides you? And look at the little spirit's delight that he's going to find out the answer to this question. And Jesus looks delighted to answer it too, I got to say. Divinity is everywhere, in everyone and everything, says Jesus. And look how he beholds it. You see Jesus's reverence toward the wolf and the seasons and the trees and the water and the animals and the ancient goddess and the Black Mary and the meditating bodhisattva. And now the child asks, are you going to punish the people of earth who hate me and blame it on you? Jesus says, nope. Everyone is invited to love and be loved. How about him? Asks the child as the spirit of Billy Porter arrives. Especially him, says Jesus. And as Billy Porter sashays by on that red carpet in his tuxedo dress, Jesus says, love the dress, Billy. And Billy Porter calls out, yours too, baby. Even, that's Mitch McConnell. Yes, even him. Want to know what I love, Jesus? Always. I love that you and me are Black. And then we see them do the thing. And now the child is still like in that dreamy space, thinking about floating up there and having his questions answered and having his curiosity fed. When a woman steps up to his mother and says, excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but you need to keep your son awake in church and teach him right from wrong. There's a place for people like that, and it's not heaven. And stop dressing him in flowers. He's a boy. And you see mom's not happy about this. And I wonder if she's going to cuss in church. She's not. What you don't know is homophobia scares the hell out of me. Well, what you just said is very rude. Mind your own business and stay out of ours, says mom. Now the child asks, tell me again why we still come here. And mom says, I like the smell of the incense. I'm so sorry that happened. Maybe someday I'll understand the hurt that causes the fear, that causes the hate, that causes the violence and stupidity. I said maybe. But love, I know all about. And then here we see the mom telling the dad what happened, and he says, that sounds awful. And she says, I'm sorry. And he says, I am too. Are you really going to stop just going to church? And she says, yes, I know how to find God. I don't need a building. And we see the way the child again and again now can leap into his father's arms. And mom blows a kiss and the child says, love you, mom, and thanks, and goes back home with dad. And at dad's place, he says, your Aunt Viv's coming over, and the child says, can Moxie come too? Remember, Moxie is his friend from school who's also queer and also Black. Can Moxie come too? We're recording our podcast. Absolutely, says dad. And now we see Moxie and Demetrius in his room, and they're each in their own space. I did a lot with space in this book. They're imagining what they want to say in their podcast. They're conceiving of themselves, really, and the language that they want to use to define themselves and describe their experience. And here's what they think up together. Before we were called Black, white, brown, queer, before the world saw our bodies and decided we were a boy or a girl or dark or light, before we learned about our sensitivities, disabilities, test scores, zip codes, before and beyond our being your child or that child, a child of this nation or that one, a child of one God or many, a child of earth or outer space. We were our own true nature. And now we see Aunt Viv has come. She's brought vegetables, and the dad tells her, the kids are making a podcast in Dee's room. She says, okay. Back to the kids. We are born in a constant state of change and stay changing. Can you stand to stand back and behold us? Let us be all that we are and all that you are not. God, imagine that. And now they're recording their episode, their first episode. When the world is the way it should be, says Moxie, the way it can be, the way it will be because it has to be. In that world, people's imaginations will be bigger, she says. Beauty will shine out of us like starlight. And there we see Billy Porter on the TV. We will rewrite the rules we live by and love the world into balance. And now the squad is on the TV, and who they are the US representatives. Rashida Tlaib, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Cori Bush, who's not pictured. Sensitivity will be valued as the superpower it is. And we'll all be seen and celebrated and safe. And now at school, they tell them we're going to have a party at the roller rink. We want to celebrate our podcast launch. And now we see Demetrius getting ready for the party, looking at himself in the mirror, and he's thinking and telling us, what you don't know is I'm always going to love myself and find others who do too. I'll wear clothes so shiny you see your own fears, and flowers to remind you my life force breaks concrete. I'll claim every color in the rainbow as armor and glow even brighter in the dark. Okay.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. That was wonderful. I actually, before we move on, I actually do have a couple of questions to ask. And my colleague Patricia actually had a question, which I actually do want to ask about roller skating, which is, I know it's just part of this, but it's so fun that you're having a roller skating party. And so first I want to ask why that, where that idea came from, because it's great. And then specifically, when did you first roller skate, and how was it? How was that for you?
I probably first, those are such fun questions. I remember roller skating, I think in 4th grade, I got my first pair of roller skates, and it was the kind that was a sneaker with roller skates on it. Like, it wasn't some fancy thing that you had to get custom made. It's just that's how they were at that time. But I remember we had this really, really smooth carpet on the basement floor, and I was roller skating around, learning to roller skate in the basement of our house. I'm one of 5 kids, so there was a bunch of us. And listening to that song 9 to 5 by Dolly Parton. And so I really, like, it was a moment of very, like, becoming, just a lot of joy in my body and in the words of that song and in the spirit of that song. And we had a roller rink in town, and there was skating on the weekends, and couple skating and just regular skating, and it's just the music. And why I decided to put it in this book, I know there's an answer, but I can't think of it right now. Like, why did I want to go? I think it was because the paper, honest to God. I think when I was figuring out the scenes, I found this paper that was a stage and all these lights and all this like curtains and stuff. And that really inspired me. And also the documentary, United Skates of America. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. And it's
Excellent.
About keeping roller skating alive, especially in Black communities.
Yeah. I loved to skate when I was younger and haven't done it in a long time. And I know Patricia, another coworker of ours, Amy, pre-pandemic, started skating, and I've had it in the back of my mind, like, post-pandemic, that's probably something I need to do, because there is something about skating. You talked about feeling joy in your body. There's really something about that activity in particular. And then you're always doing it to music, and and when you're a kid, they're usually like with your friends, and I used to skate, in the street, in the neighborhood, as a kid, and the cars would just, like, they knew that was happening, and they would just kind of slow down and honk at you until you get out of the way and stuff.
That's awesome.
So I just think that's such a great, thing to have in the book. And it's so valuable. You have centered a queer Black kid in this book, but it's about that kid just being a kid, right? I mean,
right.
those identities are all part of it, and you're talking about that, and you know, creating space where anybody reading the book can talk about that. But it's also just so important for you know, people of all identities to see people of identities that maybe don't match theirs just being people.
Yeah, just very rich family life.
Yeah.
And connections, and the pleasure of that, just sitting on the couch with people that you love in your household when that's possible, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll ask you one more question before we move to the next part, which is to get to the heart of it, which is why this queer Black kid. And you've mentioned that there are real people in the book.
Yeah.
And so I just want to, because you're looking at something a little bit outside yourself with this. And so if you could just speak a little bit to like where that started and
yeah, I wanted, it was really, having done the book about whiteness, I wanted to make sure that the book both countered anti-Blackness that shows up in books by just showing what I know to be true about the human beings who I am close with and fortunate to be in relationship with and love, about just like families being families and being very loving and circling around children exactly as they are. And I specifically also wanted to have the child have a white mom and a Black father who are not together, because I wanted to make explicit that kind of, there's this reality and then there's this one. And you do have to reconcile it if you're somebody who's moving in both worlds. Much of the time, I don't know how, what the percentage would be, but a lot of white people are not moving in a world that has Black people in it in any meaningful, connected way. The society is just set up in this segregated way where if you wanted to, I guess you could just have this one way your whole life if you're white. Everybody has to deal with white people. But white people could just decide to deal with each other and then just absorb what's coming at them from the media and everything, about who everybody else is, right? So everybody else is other. So I wanted to have the child be like, no, I got both. And so I need to work it out. And I wanted to show the mom what it even looks like. I really modeled her after myself and put myself in there to have somebody who's accountable and working on it. And the white mom is the only one who really makes a choice that kind of endangers the child by bringing him to church. And she kind of missed it because she has her attachment to going to church. If you see in her childhood thing, there's a picture of the Last Supper. So it's indicating that she was raised with a Christian religion, and then we see Catholic Church. So she adapts, she changes because her child says to her, tell me again why we're here. That hurt, that scared me. And I wanted to model her being responsive and making a different choice right away that was for the benefit of that child. And then I wanted that the various characters who were in his life who were not his mom to, have as much airtime as possible, and just really honor that.
And that's really important in a lot of young people's lives, or the family that may not live with them, be related to them, but are there to nurture and support and guide. And I also really appreciate that while you were speaking to something negative that happened in church, and we know happens in churches, there was no throwing out of anything with with that in terms of, there's still this awesome like relationship directly with Jesus that you put in the center, and so this idea that it's like, faith is all good too, right? But it's it's how people treat other people that you're speaking to there, and everybody can be blessed and accepted as well.
Yeah, and I wanted
regardless.
to tell to settle that matter. Since I have you right in front of me, Jesus, let's settle it. If I don't believe in you, are we okay? Because it matters. It matters to him that Jesus still believes in him, even if he doesn't. So I think that kids get that.
Yeah, and that you just you have to kind of figure out what you do believe, and that might change. So yes, if we can go on, I'd love to see more about how you do what you do, and give some tips to anyone who might want to do the same thing and for their own paper skating party.
Yeah, and for those of you who brought, who are arriving to this scene here with me and Stephanie with glue sticks and pens and brown paper bag and magazine clippings and things. This format makes it difficult to do a workshop, but I am going to tell you how I do make the characters that I make, and some different ways that you can too. So you can see, do you see Jesus and Demetrius in their spirit form? Okay.
Yes.
So the style of them, so this vision of Jesus, I think my connection was unstable for a second. This vision of Jesus, when I was little, my little sister thought God looked like that. So she let me use her design in this book, actual size. She thought God was like 2 inches high and had big hair and a big beard and a little triangle dress. And that always just blew my mind. So I was really excited to put this in the book and honor her depiction of Jesus in her child's mind. But also, this style of making people is the Ivan Brunetti style of drawing comics. It's a big head, like a jelly bean body. I used a triangle body, but you could use like a jelly bean shaped body, just a wiggly little oval. And then little curvy arms with the snowball hands and little curvy legs with snowball feet. And so I just wanted to also give credit to Ivan Brunetti for this style. And how do I advance this? Oh, great. So this is what it looked like before I started. I knew I was going to make this, 28 Jesuses and Demetriuses in spirit form. And I start with these these shapes out of brown paper bag. And you see my materials are this fabric glue at the top left corner. There's a regular glue stick that I use for just the paper, and my pen for their little faces. And then the fabric is elsewhere on the table. But then it looked like this. Once they had all their hair and their expressions and the ways that I wanted you can see the ways I wanted their bodies to move differently, but it's still, in every case, it's that basic shape of a circle with a little triangle or a little oval body, and then the dress over top. And this is what it looks like when we take the pictures. This is a woman named Alexa who takes the photographs of each character so that we can put them in the book. So I want you to see what they look like. So that's how small they are in real life. We just took a picture of each one. And then those go from, from real life into the computer. And then they get laid onto the background again in the computer. There's all the same layers in the computer that I make on my desk. And this is Billy Porter. This is the Billy Porter tuxedo dress that I was really excited to illustrate. And this, I just wanted him in this book. I wanted him and Jesus together in this book. I wanted the child to look at him on TV and feel such connection, and also just like, is this okay? Am I okay? Is this just wonderful? Can I just be happy about this? And everything in the child's life is saying, yes, you can just be happy about this. It's marvelous. So that was when Billy Porter was on Sesame Street. And this is how a little video from when I was making him. That's how tiny he is. I make them so small. And then this is how I actually end up kind of playing with and manipulating the paper dolls to see how they're going to look on their background. And so that's how the layer got remade onto the on the computer. And then those are all the little pieces, and you see their bodies are in pieces too, so that I can put them in different positions, and I can put different heads on the same torso. And there's the skaters all over here. And this is what my desk looked like when I was making the skating scenes, because that's the culminating scene in the story where the child and Moxie are having their party to celebrate their book. I mean, their podcast and their and just their being. They're celebrating their being, and they want their people there. So we were making. I was making these for a little while, and you see what it looks like on the front is not the same as, like, look how messy the back is. And how much I use the brown paper partly because it has such a good structure to hold up these little bodies. And so I can layer it back there to make sure the neck doesn't fall down, and make sure that the shoulder, just like a skeleton, I have to give it that structure. And then this is how you could start making your roller skating party collage. You could cut out, you could draw a little shape of a body, however you draw, whatever style, and then look at it in the brown paper, and then add clothing or whatever you like. But also, what I want to say is, if we were doing this workshop together and I was in front of you, and I would encourage you to draw these, whoever you want to have at your party, any way you want. It could be a circle with that person's the initial of the first name. It doesn't have to be a whole body with the face and hair and clothes and different body positions. It can just be the name. It can just be my rebel aunt written on a popsicle stick. The point of this whole activity and the whole idea of this, if you ever would like to make your party, is to put yourself there however you would like to depict yourself. And then to surround yourself with the people who really see you. And maybe even, and specifically, like in this case, these kids need to be exactly who they are, and loved and seen and known and cherished, so they can be free. And that's what I wanted to show with their body language in the roller skating party. And this is how she came to be. This is the security guard from school who comes to the party, because she was already going to be at the roller rink on Friday anyway, because she goes every Friday. And then this is how you can build a character. So you see there's just little pieces of grocery bag paper, and some, instead of the cookie cutter with the arms out and the legs down, you can make it more swoopy in both directions, and then show somebody really in motion. So I wanted to show you how simple that starts out as before I put the clothing on, and the hair and the eyes and the mouth and the little hands. But it should be your style and how you like to do it. This is my style and how I like to share it.
That's wonderful. And also thank you for reminding folks that there's no right way to do this.
You could just visualize it too. Yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine.
Just visualize it. Like if I was having this party, and what would be my playlist? And if you don't like to roller skate, you could just be at the rink. You can hang out by the snack counter just like eat Doritos and watch people skate and listen to music that you like. There's fun to be had on the smooth floor and beside the side.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of if you decide to take on this little project of having your playlist, having the music that you would skate to or dance to, or as you say, just hang out to, be yourself to, and enjoy the people's company. I also see that this would be a fun thing to do with someone else, you know, to invite a friend.
Yes.
And you can both get together and cut out your people and, you know, color them.
If you make them the way I make them with clothes and everything, you can't usually do it all in one go. So it could be an ongoing thing. Like first you make their little bodies and then you make their little faces, however you like. But the point is just to enjoy that experience of imagining who could be there, including people who you don't know. Right? Yeah. So you may even feel like, if you're watching this, you may be like, I don't know anybody who I can fully be myself with. And if you're sensing that you're queer, or you know that you're queer or trans or your gender, something about you is going to involve, you have to face other people's ideas about that, you know. There may not feel like anybody in your life who you can do that with. So put somebody there who you don't even know, but you know they would love you, you know, like me or Billy Porter or God. If you have a relationship to any kind of God, where that God, you know, anybody who calls himself a God needs to do the unconditional love thing. So but if, you know, whatever your thing is, but make sure who's there is, they got you.
Absolutely. And you may not have a radical librarian, but you can make a radical librarian, envision a radical librarian. And librarians are generally pretty amazing anyway. I think a lot of kids probably have a librarian that can fill that. Yeah, excellent. So I wanted to ask another question about, because looking at your process is really just amazing. And so first question, what happens to all of these little people once you're done with the book?
You know, I never made a book this way before. All the other books, each page is what shows up in the book. So there's a window and there's a kid standing there, and then there's a table and a glass of milk, but they're all glued down to the paper, and then it goes in the portfolio. But this is, yeah, for real. Like I have like buckets of these now. All these little characters, you know, they're so sweet. All these dolls, and I just want to play with them. But they're also my art, you know, so I don't want to mess them up. I don't want them to get messed up. So right now they're just accumulated, and I have to figure out how to put, some of them are in envelopes, but I'll have to figure out how to preserve them, because, and I really do want to play with them though. I have to admit, they just like you can't, this whole thing, it's just like, it's just a toy. There's Moxie just skating by. Did you ever play with color forms?
I didn't.
You did? Okay. It's just another way of having little characters that go on backgrounds. So
yeah, very cool. Well, I love that they're still like in the world. You know, these little entities that you've made. And we I talked a little bit in the introduction, but I described the books, but let me say the titles, and we've also got links in the chat to so your previous books were in the Ordinary Terrible Things, is what the series was called, and you had Death is Stupid, Divorce is the Worst, and then Tell Me About Sex, Grandma, which is a great title. I was raised by my grandparents, so it
Oh yeah,
was particularly, because my grandmother did not, but that's
yeah. She's a fictional grandma.
yeah. So and those are sort of ordinary terrible things, and especially the weight that we put on them when it comes to communicating with kids about them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this strikes me as a wonderful thing.
Mm.
Maybe not so ordinary yet, right? So like,
Oh, it seems like it's a little bit in the future.
yeah. And so then that brings me to another question about whether or not you might already have an idea about the next book, perhaps in a series of wonderful, almost ordinary things.
I do. Uh, yeah, this book has, I like with the other ones, I just wanted there to be a lot of affirming language right on the page, available to whoever's reading it, so the child can read it to themselves, or the adults can read it and be like, here's the words I can use, and then complement with their own words too. But the next book will be about sexual abuse in childhood, when it happens within your own family and you're really worried about the person who committed the abuse. So it's super confusing because you didn't want that to happen, but you also don't want them to get in trouble. And I think that for a lot of children, and it is very common to experience sexual abuse or something like that in childhood, it's too common. I think a lot of children find themselves in that impossible place, and that keeps it happening in a way that is really causes a lot of damage and pain. And so the book is going to be about when the child discloses, right from, is already disclosed before the book even opens, and we get to see a mother and a sibling just hut to it, just be there for the child and be there with the contradictions and the that inner conflict, and really just rise to the occasion of helping to see this child through, understanding what happened and what needs to happen next. And it's called You Ruined It, a book about boundaries. And it's really about even finding out what that means after such a violation. But again, it's going to be a really celebratory and affirming book, if you can believe that, because the people around the child are going to be real and open and totally believe, and ready to do what it takes to uh, put some safety under them and some health around them, so that they can figure themselves out.
And then again, you're the sort of central concept there with sexual abuse is, of course, terrible.
Yeah.
But it is a terrible thing that exists in the world that so many children have to deal with.
Yeah.
And then, so the flip side of that you're presenting, the wonderful and again hopefully more ordinary thing is that if that terrible thing happens,
Yeah,
that there are people and environments and systems in place.
because I used to be a real big Buffy fan, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when it was on TV, and there was this one wonderful episode where a character named Whistler says, the big things are going to happen, the bad things, maybe he said the bad things are going to happen, it's what you do afterward that counts. And that, I might even put that at the beginning of this next book, because that matters so much, I think, in childhood. How do the people around you react? And especially with sexual abuse, did people believe you? Did they shame you? Did they ignore you? Did they freak out? Did everything fall apart? So it's what you do after, and I'm going to show an after that that's just really full of love and wellness.
Yeah. And that will also be sort of written for sort of middle grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Wonderful.
And
Yeah.
also published by Daughter Press, because Daughter Press is so wonderful, and Jennifer Baumgardner publishes everything that I make, and I'm so grateful to them, and to bookstores like yours that want to put this material on the shelves. I don't take that for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Anastasia. We feel like it's important to, make these conversations available to, to families, in particular, families that look like all kinds of things,
Yeah.
which is so important. So I'm gonna let me just see if we've gotten any audience questions. I don't think we have any more audience questions, but we did post a link to Daughter Press. Shout out to them. And I just want to ask one last just little question for you, which is how you got started with writing books and illustrating books and putting this out there. And if you with the process as well, and then also of course like specifically these kinds of books where you looked and said, I want to talk to kids about the things people really don't want to talk to kids about.
Yeah. Well, okay, there's two parts. The first part is that when I was little, anytime I was learning something or excited about something, I made a book about it. My first books were about like obedience and manners and being a good child, which apparently that I know and I remember that was very important to me. And I was imitating things like Goofus and Gallant, which used to be a series in the Highlights magazine to show like good behavior versus bad behavior. But I was really into just anytime something was happening, I would make a little book and I would draw pictures to go with it. Now, I didn't think when I grow up, I'm going to do this. It just was something I discovered about the way that I learn and the way that I like to express myself. So in high school, when I was studying for tests, I needed to draw big pictures. And that would help me commit to memory what I needed to know for the test. Just big charts and graphs and things. And so how I got to do this was when I got out of college and I wanted to become a writer and an activist like Gloria Steinem. And I tried to write in a way that would like motivate people and change the culture and all those things. But I kept writing about my parents' divorce, my grandparents' health deterioration to where they were in nursing homes and then funeral homes. And then also I was continued to like perseverate on this like sexual abuse and various things that happened around sex that were just like not cool and totally confusing, and I was alone. So I kept writing about those same things and I couldn't get out of my little 10 square feet of material. And my friends were writing books after books after books and going on speaking tours and things, and I was like, wow, I am really stuck. And so I decided to just stay there. And I was like, okay, by my 30s, so I'm 49 years old now. It wasn't until my mid 30s that I was like, I needed something that I didn't have. And it's causing me to be stuck now in adulthood, because your childhood follows you to your adulthood. Anything that didn't get understood there there's still a chance to understand it if we get to grow up. So and that is part of growing up, is resolving some of those and untangling some of those knots. So I was like, I just need to do this. And so like Toni Morrison says, if the book that you need hasn't been written yet, you got to write it. So I wrote Divorce is the Worst. I wrote Death is Stupid. I knew I wanted to do one about sex, and so I started with those three. And I tried to draw them in different ways. And the only way of making art that I really liked, that really looked like what I felt, was collage, because I wanted the sky to be a real sky. And I was like, I'm not a good enough artist to draw a sky that looks as beautiful as the sky. So I'm going to cut it out of this magazine and put it in a window. So that cutting and pasting from childhood came back to me. And then one of the friends who was publishing books and publishing books and publishing books and speaking all over became a publisher. And so I said to her, look, I'm making these. And she said, let me publish them. And that's Jennifer.
Wonderful. Well, we're glad those are in the world. Last question before we close out is, if you have a book aside from your books that you would like to recommend, maybe something that's special to you or something you've read recently.
What a good question. Oh my God, there's so many. I really love I really love Rotten Island. Do you know Rotten Island is that William Steig?
That sounds right. I'm embarrassed to say I'm not sure offhand, but
No,
Patricia's going to look it up and put the link in, and we'll know here in a moment.
I like Rotten Island for what this time is in terms of the pandemic and the racial injustice and the Capitol riot, and processing really painful, scary truths about what the world is. Rotten Island is absurd to the point of hilarity, but the aggression is relatable, but so is the healing and the growth of it. So I would recommend Rotten Island. And then to the grown-ups, I recommend Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower. And it's not everybody's thing, but there's so much in that for us for now.
There really is. And I'm going to go back on what I said and ask one audience question, because you talked a little bit about how you got to where you are doing what you do. And so we have a question, which is, what advice would you give a younger you or an aspiring artist?
A younger me would be, just keep going. Don't stop. But like, I don't even need that advice because I couldn't stop if I tried. Like, it kept coming out.
But that could be good advice for someone else who,
So it is. I offer the same advice. Take good care of yourself. Take care to know yourself. Know how you learn, how you process, what your life is. It's really worth doing, with a lot of love and compassion for yourself, and if possible, other people who do that with you, so that you can stand to exist. And if you can stand to exist, then your work will come through, your art will come through, your gifts will come through.
I think that's excellent advice for artists, and really for anyone. So thank you for that, Anastasia. It's been lovely to see you again, even virtually. And we look forward to the next opportunity. And thank you so much. And thanks to those of you who are viewing this with us and are taking any of your time out with us. We know that life has a lot going on right now. So thank you so much. We encourage you, if you can, to purchase Anastasia's book, and any and all of her books, but the new one, What You Don't Know, a story of liberated childhood, and to get out some paper and some scissors and some markers and some magazines and make a roller skating party.
How you do it.
However you do it, absolutely. So thank you so much. Yeah, please stay safe and well. And as Anastasia just advised, take good care of yourself, be compassionate to yourself and as well as to others. So good night, everybody.
Stephanie, thank you.